All right, you guys. So, episode 7 of The Last of Us, we actually got to see what happened to Joel. I think episode 6 left us with a cliffhanger that a lot of people I saw on Facebook saying, did Joel just die? And the three of us, we know exactly what happened. We all know now from last week, Zach, this was your first time watching the show, but you've never played the game. What was your thoughts with the end of episode 6, but now seeing what happens at the beginning of episode 7? I'm curious.
I was still a little concerned maybe that he was gonna pass because the way he was telling her, like the look in his eye of telling her, like, get back to Tommy. I'm not gonna. That's his brother's name, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'm not gonna make it. And she's just like, no, and he's like, no, like I'm not gonna. So yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. Like I would hope that that's not the case, but then with her being so terrified and just fighting through it to go find any kind of supply to like help preserve him, that was because I think we're all parents here, right? So I think we all can relate to that. We've had a moment, pretty scary with our kids at one point, whether it be choking or whatever, and just that desperation of like trying to help them or find something to help them or whatever, and just you kind of have to take a moment to breathe and be in the moment and be the adult in that instance and help. And in that moment, the roles were very much flipped for them because
Mm-hmm.
Ellie had to breathe and she was just so scared to lose him, but at the same time she had to just look. I don't even think necessarily she knew what she was looking for to save him, just anything. And but yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty worried. He's looking pretty rough at the beginning of this episode, so
Yeah,
yeah.
so in the beginning, we find them in that house, and we see them in the basement where oh, I'm gonna lose my voice already.
You see Callus
Obviously,
in the garage, which is straight out of the game. I love that.
yeah, yeah, and that's the thing too, Zach, was the way that started. It's very exactly how the game started. They were in the basement. The only difference is the way Joel was impaled, but he's injured, and she's down there helping him. But next thing we see is exactly like what you said was he told her to go, and she's on her way up the stairs to try and find some stuff, and then we get to a flashback to. Did it say how far back we went or no? It was just
I don't, it's the week before we met her.
yeah, the screen just turned black, correct? There was
Yeah.
no
I think
actual
I
time.
think it just went back.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it went back and it was on her Walkman when she was jogging in the gym. Like that was the first thing they showed, I think.
And it's funny you say that she's in the gym. We now see a different version of Ellie. I guess you could say we actually saw Ellie as a teenager, right?
Yeah, someone mentioned the first couple episodes feel completely different if you go back and watch them now, because you've seen this different version of Ellie, where you realize this all just went down the few days before she was in the room with Marlene.
Mhm.
She's a
So when
scrapper.
you see she's got the knife and she's very protective, I'm ready to kill, and like meets Joel for the first time, like that all just makes more sense now because it happened. That was like the next thing to happen, basically, other than her sitting in the room for a week.
We see in that next shot after she got into a fight. We didn't see any of the fight, but she was in what looked like to be a principal's office, but it's a soldier. So I guess he's the one running the kids. And we see that, and we hear it from Riley later, her friend her best friend, that depending on what you do there and how successful you are, what you do as a kid or like in school, like a graduation, you are assigned a different type of job.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be a part of like not Fedra, but like you're assigned a job. And he's saying, do you want to?
Yeah, this was a school for orphans
Yeah.
that were trained to become Fedra officers. So anyway, going to this school, you have no parents. You are just part of Fedra. You're like a child of Fedra at this point, and you're raised to become a soldier for Fedra. And Riley says, you know what? I was given the sewage detail. So she literally stands with a gun to make sure the people like Joel, throwing the body on the fire, like they're standing there watching the people do their work and making sure that like she's like, that's the assignment I got, is to sit there and watch people shovel shit.
Yeah. And he told her, he said, either A, you're gonna have this job where you're gonna be listening to people like the person you just hit, or you're gonna be telling them what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting the choice that she has to make there because so Riley and Ellie are both at a point of like graduation where they're going to get assignments, right? And Riley made a decision of I don't want to be a part of this, and she leaves to go join the Fireflies, and the chief or whatever of the school, this Fedra officer, explains these options, and it almost makes the unnatural, depressing choice comfortable. Like, yeah, you're gonna hate your life here, but it's gonna be a nice life. You're gonna have a bed to sleep in, and you're always gonna be fed, and it's a comfortable, depressive choice or depressing choice, which I thought was real interesting the way they painted that. It almost makes you think, well, I guess she did. She chose to stick with it. So it's almost like Riley and Ellie are choosing paths of adversaries, and because they are, one's killing the other one.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously Ellie's now sleeping, and we meet her friend Riley. And we were referenced to Riley in episode
One.
what? Yeah, when Marlene says, "Did you?" No, was it Marlene? She mentioned the name Riley. And it's the one time, and it's what conversation they had whenever she's like chained up, and that's the one time we hear about Riley. Obviously, the three of us knew exactly who Riley was, and we knew what was going to happen within this episode. The majority of it, we said it last week, it was going to be an entire episode that's a flashback, which I think to tell the story, that was actually necessary to make it the entire episode.
You know what it was? It was when they were packing up to leave with Ellie, and she gave her a backpack, and she's like, "You're gonna come with us." And she said, "Why should I trust you?" And she's like, "Well, Riley did. Isn't that enough?"
And then we do learn Riley becomes a Firefly, which we know Fedra and Fireflies don't get along. There is a war going on in the Boston QZ that is, you get your good and your bad, and that's another thing about this universe that we're looking at is it's not just infected you have to worry about. It's now Fedra. Yeah, it's exactly humans, and now we're gonna start seeing another group of people that you should be fearful of. John, did you enjoy this episode? I told me and Elvis spoke about it a little bit last night. I felt like this episode is very, very, very close to the game of exactly what happened in the game. There are some minor changes, but I think this was faithful to the game. Did you personally enjoy this episode, or were there things you're kind of like, not as good as 3?
I gotta be honest with you, I could have done without it. I really could. It really did nothing for me. And you actually said it before too. Like this version of whatever is going on feels completely different from, like, let's say the first 2 episodes. You know what I mean? It wasn't very exciting. It had some story to it, which was great to hear, but I think a lot of it for me, and I don't know, maybe it's just because I've played the game and I kind of know what the story is, but that whole Mall Rats apocalypse show could have been a conversation that her and Joel are having while she's trying to stitch him up, and having more of a intimate conversation to distract him from the pain and all this stuff. Because what I worry about is that we've now lost 2 shows on absolute flashbacks, and we only have 2 episodes left. You know what I mean? Are we going to make it to the end of the game, or are they going to completely cut this whole show off right in the middle of the game, and season 2 is going to be the next half of the game? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know where they're going.
We'll get to the end of part 1.
It's just going to be really long.
Yeah.
And
I don't know where it's going. Yeah. It's like, I honestly, I mean, everything about the episode was done very well. Like I don't know if they found an abandoned mall and they dressed it, and I don't know what it was.
Oh, they dressed it.
Great.
Yeah, it was a set. It was a full on set. I don't know the full like how much of it was a set, but at the very, very end when you watch the behind the scenes, they recreated so much.
It's absolutely stunning. And then they even did the Mortal Kombat thing was also the game that she was playing with, trying to putz around with when her and Joel went into that little shack and he put the guns and everything in the floor, you know? So it was like almost like a little flashback on that. But I almost really feel like this whole episode was like an apocalyptic Mallrats. It just didn't do anything for me.
We'll
You
see.
know,
And the one thing
their
too.
whole story on this is how she got bit, which I think is the story they were trying to tell, is where this all came from. I honestly, for me, it could have been a 5-minute conversation, you know, of her telling her half how this became. At the time, she's trying to distract Joel and try to get him stitched up, you know what I mean? And just a more intimate moment between the two of them. Because now I've kind of feel like I've lost 2 shows, 2 episodes on growing their relationship. And then at the end of that episode, I think it was at the end, like they kind of held hands a little bit, if I remember right.
Yeah,
I feel like they could have built on this so much more by kind of having this more of a talk, in a sense. Like, I don't know, it had to be, you know, a whole episode. But that's just from me. Like, it's constant. This is like episode 2 that has now pulled me completely out of the story.
One thing about it, and this is why I think it doesn't make sense to why the episode was there. Zach, just so you know, in the game, this was actually a DLC.
Oh, okay.
So this
I can
came
see
out,
that.
Yeah, this came out sometime after the game actually released. So
a comic book came out, and it was about the story of Ellie and Riley, and then a DLC was created to follow that comic book. So there was a whole story outside of the game, but it was like years later, wasn't it, Chris?
Wow.
Like,
But this is
no,
like the same
DLC
thing.
wasn't long after. It wasn't too much.
This is almost the same thing I feel like they could have done with what was it, episode 3, with the 2 of them. That it literally could have been its own standalone feature. You know what I mean? Like, they could have done, let's say, like,
but it didn't hit like the Bill episode, and that's what I said to Chris. Like,
it didn't. Yeah.
They were trying to do that again, but it didn't hit.
It just didn't hit. They were, you know, and maybe it's because they just did it. But, you know, that whole episode 3 literally could have been its own film, you know. And I think after this show, they could have made a prequel of her story, you know, even like, you know, get more into the school, more into their relationship before what's her name kind of disappeared into the Fireflies, you know. Right. They could have done a 4-episode prequel, or even 3, or even just one feature film for like 2 hours, and really kind of dove in more into that story. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but instead they used the 9-episode platform to kind of pull you out of the story a little bit twice now.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I mean, it's just like the video game kept me on edge every step of the way, and this just isn't doing it.
And the one thing too is, I feel like 3 could have been its own episode as a prequel, and then kind of take more ideas from the game to create another episode that's more necessary. You know, with interactions with Ellie and Bill and Joel. This one, in a way, was necessary because it was part of the game. When you play the DLC, you see the connection.
Right.
But my concern, I talked to Elvis about this too, was this next episode is important to see the relationship between Ellie and Joel towards the end. But my concern is after that we have one more episode.
Yeah.
And end with that last episode. Is it going to be rushed? Are we going to get an hour 20? Or are we going to get an hour 30 like we did in the first episode? Because the final episode, even though it's a final episode, it's the very end of the show / the end of the game. It's a very, very, very crucial part of the entire game, especially leading into season 2.
Yeah. So I did just watch Screen Crush's Easter egg video, and you know how he always talks about the tones and the hidden meanings and things like that. And he talked about how this episode is, you know, the 5 wonders of the mall or whatever it is, are like the 5 stages of childhood, and so like finding the escalator and just the joy of, you know, stumbling around on something new. It's like learning to walk for the first time. She's actually having so much joy she actually trips and falls on Riley. And anyway, fast forward through the carousel, the Victoria's Secret, and the dancing. It's all about her being a child, and this is the moment that she changes to a woman. When she makes an advance on Riley and says sorry, and then gets that validation back from Riley, she's like, "What are you sorry for?" Like she wants it too. And it's like in this moment that she's like, "Okay, I've grown up. This is like this is I'm an adult now." Um, it's also the story of Riley being her protector, like that she protected her from the bully in school. And, she pulled the gun out and started shooting at the zombie, like, get behind me, like she was the protector. And then, we had to have that role reversal where Ellie then had to, stab the zombie off of Riley and they both got bit. Um, I think that's the story that they're really trying to tell with Joel, that he was the protector, and Riley's now, or I keep saying Riley, Ellie has now become the protector and has to take care of Joel. So she's like turning into this more empowered Ellie. And I think it's really important for the next episode to establish Ellie as a credible protector, because I don't want to spoil anything for Zach, but there's going to be a moment coming up that we need to see that from Ellie now, so that it makes more sense coming up. Also, I think two things. One thing that I missed when I talked to you last night, Chris, because I said, I feel like they left it open. We didn't actually see, like in the game, you're like climbing scaffold and there's zombies everywhere. Like it just was left open and them just sitting there next to each other. And then someone reminded me, do you remember when they drove into the laundromat in not St. Louis, Kansas City, and she kills the guy when he's like, I'm sorry, I want my mom or whatever, and she kills him. He's like, you shouldn't have to see that or do that, and she said, it's not the first time.
Yeah.
That means that she killed Riley. That's the only person in the whole story that she could have possibly killed. So it means when she said, whether it's 2 minutes or 2 months, it was 2 minutes. She had to kill her like 2 minutes later.
Yep. And
Wow.
the one thing that makes this episode interesting, especially that makes a connection to episode 6, towards the very end of episode 6, was we learn Riley did have parents, and she knew her parents prior to them dying. So Riley has already experienced loss, right? Ellie at this point hasn't. So
Yeah.
now that Ellie and Riley have both been bitten, and Ellie thinks she's gonna die, and she also feels, Riley's gonna die as well. Now Ellie is about to experience her first loss, compared to Riley, who already has when her parents died, right?
Mhm.
So now this makes that,
yeah, one breaking glass and just freaking out, and the other
and,
one's
and you
like,
see how angry she is, because now she knows she's about to lose not just her best friend, but someone she truly, truly cares about. And now that makes the connection to episode 3 when she says, I don't think she mentioned it in episode 6, but the fact, she lost Riley, then there was Tess, then there's Sam. And
Yeah.
she says all she really has, she doesn't say it, but she insinuates all she really has left is Joel. So now she's experiencing in her life that she's losing multiple people in her life, and you can see that it's making her a stronger person, but now she's experiencing loss. And now with this episode, we got to see her first loss, the first person she really loses. And that's why I think they did so great on the episode, was we did see that development with her, and it's making the connections, through every episode to understand why Ellie is the way she is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like what Riley says. It's poetic. It is poetic, the way this episode was done. But I do agree with John. It does kind of take you away from that moment, because just like in the game, Joel gets he gets hurt, and then it kind of takes you away from that main story that you really want to know what's going on, what's happening. It takes away the development between her and Joel, but it now helps develop the character of Ellie, which is really good. I think they did that extremely, extremely well.
Yeah, like again, like there wasn't anything wrong with like the story of the episode. I just do wish that it was its own thing. I do wish they just did a side story, like, Ellie, you know what I mean? And they took this episode to have grown, the relationship between Joel and her, because they could have, when he was like, trying to throw her out and get out of here and go back to, his brothers and stuff like that. And she leaves, and then she stops in the hallway at the staircase for a second and thinks, and then that's when they kick back to the flashback. I almost feel like they could have gone right to her rushing into, I think, the bathroom area or the kitchen looking for, something to stitch them back together, and her kind of grabbing all that stuff, going back down and sitting next to him and saying, I'm sticking here, and then the two of them start talking while she's stitching him together. And
I think that's a bigger moment though. Like, the reason they showed her do that is because she was considering actually leaving. Like, she was about to leave. Her path was leaving Joel, and she changed her path, just like her path was leaving Riley.
Right. But I would have loved to have seen the conversation between the two of them about that, in a sense of her distracting him, and then having another standalone film of just the prequel. You know what I'm saying? Like, I still like the episode. I think the episode was great as a whole. But when you're like limited, and you're limited to this 9-episode thing, I want to get rid of 3 and I want to get rid of 7, make them their own thing, because I think it would have been so amazing to have seen her sitting next to him, and like, he's like on his deathbed right now, you know what I mean? He could literally bleed out, and she's sitting there trying to distract him, and that love between the two of them is continuing to grow with that relationship, and her just spilling her guts on why she's the way she is right now, why she has so much of an attitude, who did she really kill? You know what I'm saying? So it's great that we've got the visual, but I would have loved to have seen that with the two of them, and then had its own standalone later.
So we did see this episode get a little romantic, right? We saw a romantic side of two people,
there was a lot of crush moments. Like,
there was.
She's crushing hard.
But my question now is, Zach, did you see that coming?
Yeah, I saw it from the trailer from last week. I could tell, just like the body language, the way they were talking to each other. As you guys are saying all this, like, I'm trying to think of how maybe they could have redone this. And that, again, I've never played the game, so I don't know if this would work.
No, this
is
perfect.
To John, would you have liked if they did like a 2-hour episode to do number 1, and like how we got Joel's intro of his backstory? What if they would have just done like episode 1, 2 hours, and then done Ellie's story as soon as Joel's ended, and then we would have gotten an intro for both of them? Would that have made it a little better?
For me, I almost would have rather it had been a 12-episode show.
Yeah,
and it started from the beginning. Started from the whole explosion, which they did. They started with the whole explosion, but just started where Ellie is in school, and then just like work the timeline rather than flashbacks. You know what I mean? So that the whole story is parallel building with itself. So that when we get to these points, so that when
bombs going off back then, obviously Riley probably made some of those bombs. The troopers, packing up and all that, like that was all happening at the exact same time. They could have.
Right. So like these stories could have been intertwined with each other. When they're doing this, they could have inserted this clip here and built that little story, and that and kind of ran the stories together. But they're running 2 stories and 2 different timelines, and pulling you out of here and say, hey, I know we just built this up here, but sit down for another couple of weeks and we're going to tell this story. You know what I mean? And I'm almost wondering, would it have been better for me to have not watched the series, right? And wait for the whole thing to have come out and watched it as a single 9-hour film or whatever the hell it would totally be. You know what I mean? Because now I feel like, because I know things from the game and we're seeing things happen, did it ruin it for me? Do you know what I mean? Because a lot of the gameplay was obviously taken out. So a lot of that action stuff, the stuff that kept me anxious at the edge of my seat, is kind of all gone.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So that this whole story that's happening right now, which is fine, but something is just not hitting me with the right way. And I don't know if it's the format that it's going. I don't know if I should have just waited and just watched the whole thing, just binge watched all 9 episodes together. Maybe that would have worked better for me. I don't know. Would it have been better to, like, again, run the stories parallel and piece it all together rather than constantly pulling you out into different things?
Yeah.
One thing
Yeah, I
being,
can see that.
Because,
one
like, you
thing,
think from the end of episode 6 into the beginning of 7, Joel was on his deathbed, and now what is it? An hour later, we haven't really gotten anywhere. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
with that storyline.
We've gotten nowhere. You know what I mean? So now we're have to wait another week. So that's gonna be a 2-week gap. You know, half a month before you get back to where the story was. And I think that's the thing that's driving me most insane.
But keep in mind what the next story is. It's still not
Well,
Joel.
yeah.
And the one thing that me and Elvis talked about last night was,
Because we're going into winter, I think, right? That's what the next
well, yeah.
or something like that, right? Yeah.
We're kind of ready in winter in episode 6 already. Oh, was it 6?
Remember they moved it up
Yeah.
before Jackson, and in the
Yep.
game it wasn't winter yet. Yeah.
Right.
Because now we're going by actual months compared to the game we were doing seasons. But one thing, you know, Elvis and I talked about last night was there are things that work better in the game than it does in the show. So Zach's idea about, you know, making it in the very beginning the way it started, that would have worked great for a show. But in the game, it wouldn't give you that aha moment. Because you know there are moments in the game when you're playing something and then all of a sudden 2 things connect and you're like, oh, okay, that makes more sense.
Well, and in the game they had so many reasons to flash back. It was, you know, you see a Halloween shop and she flashes back to the Halloween scene, or, you know, she's trying to find something with electricity. There's an electricity puzzle that you have to do, and it flashes back to getting the power at the mall. So there was like 7 small mission things that flash back, and you're constantly today in the past, today in the past. And in the show, they had to like choose one, and they didn't choose any of the ones from the game. They just kind of created it with this walking away scene. So that part felt like a miss to me, only because I was waiting for where's the back and forth with the flashback and today. So that felt weird to me, but they had to do it. They had to establish it quick because it's a show. So I'm okay with it. I'm not like, these guys make the best decisions ever. Like they're God. They can do no wrong. Like I don't feel that way this week, but it still works. Like it still is okay with me. You know what I mean?
The one thing we got from the game that we didn't get from this episode. So Zach, there is from the end of episode 6 when we see Joel gets, you know, impaled, and then to the house that he's now laying in. In the DLC in the game, there is a moment in between. They end up in the mall, which is why we get flashbacks, because in the game she's in the mall, and then in the past she was in the mall, and that's what triggers the flashbacks.
But that was an important part that I missed to say.
her and Joel are in a store, and it's locked up, and she's in there, you know, trying to find stuff to kind of help him. That's what triggers flashbacks. But also there are enemies in there, and that's when you kind of see the moment where she's defending Joel and doing everything she can to make sure those guys don't get to Joel. And we don't see that in this episode, and I think we might get that in the next episode in a different way. But that was the moment in the game, or in that DLC, we're like, okay, like she's actually defending him and trying to make sure that he's safe. So again, exactly what Elvis said, the reverse role. She is now the protector.
Yeah.
And that was a moment in the game where you felt like she was the protector.
Yeah, that's cool.
One thing I love that they blended. I'm sorry, Zach, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I'm trying to relate this to another show, very similar, like The Witcher. I've never played that game, but watching that series, I was coming into it kind of from like a Game of Thrones mindset, like, okay, like it's fantasy, like I want to watch it. But trying to understand that show from not knowing anything about the games and how much that show jumps around, because it's like 3 or 4 episodes in where you're like, okay, these are different timelines. Like that person was just alive, and like now she's an old lady. Like it was hard to watch. That was like, to me, I couldn't get into that show for that reason. And like the visuals of it all look good. Like Henry Cavill, all of it was dope. But like the choppiness of it for me was like too much.
Yeah, they did
With-
bounce around a lot.
Yeah, so where this show, I understand what John is saying. Definitely, like it does. Now that I'm thinking about it, like it does kind of take you out of, because truly, like from an action standpoint, it's been 2 full episodes now since we've had like a zombie outbreak. See, right? Like the last time we saw was when the ground collapsed in and we had all the outbreak, you know? So from that standpoint, yeah, it has kind of taken away from, we're more focusing like on story versus like action, which is great. But yeah, I think the flashbacks could have been, as I'm thinking of it, like, yeah, like per episode as she sees things, I think maybe that could have worked. Because then Riley would have been a consistent character in every episode. And I feel like you would have bonded with her, and that hurt of Ellie finally losing her would have probably hit a little bit more. So I do understand what you're saying.
In The Witcher, those flashbacks, is it within an episode that the flashbacks are happening, or was it?
No, that's the weird thing, is it's happening at the same time.
Oh,
so you assume it's all happening at once, and then like you'll see someone die, and then in the next scene it's like that person's an old queen, and you're like,
she was wait, when?
Yeah,
so that's hard. That's hard to keep up. At least this one, we're getting an entire episode of a flashback to where you're like, you could dedicate that whole hour to a flashback. But if it's within an episode, that would kind of like aggravate me too.
Super confusing.
I would 100% be like, what's going on? Am I watching Back to the Future, or am I watching The Witcher? I'm so confused.
Oh, well, I know I smoke, but I swear that person just died. I swear to God.
You can just imagine this. Hold on,
wait a minute. Didn't we just watch this episode?
You're dead. You're dead.
You're dead, dude. But sorry, Elvis, I didn't mean to cut you off earlier.
Oh no, I was just gonna. There's a small Easter egg. I like, so in the mall with Riley in the game, you end up playing music too loud, and a swarm of clickers come. It's not just one. In the DLC, not the DLC, when you're walking around the mall today, which they didn't show on this show, but when you're walking around the mall today and you're having all the flashbacks to being in the mall with Riley, there is a clicker in a American Girl store that's all into the wall or whatever, and the way you get there is through a pharmacy and finding a key and opening drawers and puzzles and blah blah blah. But they took that one thing out of the mall scene from today and put it into the mall scene with Riley, and I thought that was kind of a nice little Easter egg, because they had to come up with, do we do the swarm, do we do a single one? I know, why don't we take the one from the other mall and bring it in? So I was like,
kind of combine the two. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
John, can I just say that your dog is sitting there like you're taking up too much space, and he's like, "What are you doing?
I know, so
cute." And he's literally, I saw his face. He's like, "You're kind of in my way."
And this is, I bought an extra wide chair. This was supposed to be the chair for me and my little dog, my little guy. And then after he passed, he started taking up the mantle, and he's 4 times the size of the little guy.
Oh no!
Apparently, I am in just everybody's way in this house. So it's
there is an Easter egg in this episode that takes you back in the game. Hello, who is it?
Hi.
Yeah,
copyrighted.
Answer the phone. Let them know that we are here. It takes us back to the game. I want to say we were in Pittsburgh in the game. I want to say there's a moment where they're walking through the mall, and there's a
Dawn of the Wolf
to a movie, Dawn of the Wolf, right?
And
so in the game, they're walking, and it's on the wall. And Ellie had mentioned, "Oh, have you seen this movie?" He goes, "Yeah, it was about some werewolf and some vampire thing," which was kind of like a stab to Twilight.
Well, yeah, and Sarah has the poster to Dawn of the Wolf 1 up in her room.
I think he mentioned that Sarah dragged him to go watch the movie, and so you see that.
Well, he said someone dragged me to go watch the movie.
Yeah.
Ellie didn't know about Sarah at that point,
but you do see that poster when they're walking through the mall. I will say the one thing that I was kind of like, kind of doesn't make any sense to me is we see them playing in the arcade, and then you see the infected who was on the wall kind of wake up, and we didn't know at that moment, but he was in the Halloween store. You have these girls playing music and dancing in the Halloween store for a solid 4 or 5 minutes, and all of a sudden now he shows up. You would have thought he would have woke up right away and heard
You
everything.
got to suspend your disbelief on that one a little
You know what I
bit.
mean?
She's also been living in this mall, and
Yeah, I feel like it should
why
have
are
been a
they
different
not using
store.
the mall as a fortress to begin with? Like, anytime anything happens, like a natural disaster, where does everyone end up? Fucking mall.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're gonna have to beat
Yeah.
that one later.
But I don't know. I feel like maybe it should have been a different store that he heard it. Heard it. It's just weird because like they're making
Well,
all
it was
that
a music
noise.
store in the game, right? It wasn't in the Halloween store, so I mean, they kind of skipped some storyline.
Yeah, that was the part that was kind of weird for me. One thing in the episode that was a nod to the game, but not even the first game, it's the second game, was playing "Take on Me,"
Mm-hmm. Oh.
and that's John. Did you get there yet?
Yeah.
"Take on Me," that part of the game. Okay, so
Mhm.
it's cool that they have that song played in the show because that is a nod to the second game. It's one thing that it's a skill that Ellie learns in the second game, which I kind of want to replay the second game now.
I really like that they played Sonny and Cher. I mean, it wasn't a Sonny and Cher version, but the "I Got You, Babe" song. They say we're young and we don't know. We won't find out until we grow, and it's like this whole coming of age. Like, let's just be poetic and lose our minds together. Like, it's just very that the moment's just right. And by the way, her dancing up on top of the thing is the first time where I was like, Bella, what's her name? Bella Ramsey?
Bella
It's
Ramsey.
the first time I was like, that's Ellie. Like,
Yeah.
she's got
Yeah.
the moves and everything just like the game. That was spot on.
The clothes were dead on. Everything
Yeah,
that she
the
wore
purple
in there.
Hawaiian. I
Yep.
think it was the tank top in the game, but yeah, it was the exact same pattern.
But we did see the moment they were both infected. When they both found out they were both infected, and you saw the pain and in her in Ellie's voice, realizing that she was bit. The way she screamed no, her
Yeah,
reaction
no.
to it, and she's kind of like it was a real oh shit moment for Ellie. And I mean,
Can I tell you,
many?
if the two of them don't win awards for this show, I'll be shocked because the acting between her and Pedro are unbelievable.
I think everybody. There,
Everyone's been really
there
good.
there has not been one person in this show that like to take
John Lean. Yeah.
like yeah. If you take
Only
away
because
the
of her
game,
voice.
She's a kid too. I mean, how old is she?
Yeah. No, she's 18 or 19.
18. I mean, like she's pretty young. I mean, she's freaking good, man.
I don't think
She's a
there's
good actress for sure.
Yeah, if you take away the game and you just see how well everyone played their role, and just like, man, there are moments in the show that hits extremely well. The reaction to her getting bit, her telling Joel, I'm not like her. We're seeing Pedro playing a whole different character from what we've seen him, and everyone's nailing their part. I think the show is going to do very, very well when it comes to awards.
Well, dude, just
And when I-
based on the fact of like her true accent too. I mean, when you watched her in Game of Thrones, she had the true Northerner like. We know no king, but the king in the north, his name is Stark. Like it was so thick Northerner, and then in this, it's like she truly pulls off. Like because I watch her a lot, because I want to see if she slips just a little bit, see if it comes out. And like every once in a while, it gets like bored or like almost, and then like she does, but she pulls off a bratty American teen like very
perfect.
well,
Perfect, yeah.
very believable, yeah.
It's funny how in the episode I caught it for a second. Ellie mentioned something she wants to keep her other eyebrow because she's got that cut.
Get the cut on it, yeah.
Small things, it's just small little details I enjoy.
I'll say, dude, honestly,
mask. How in the hell did they find a mask to match the game? Like,
it was identical.
Made off that mask?
They probably just made it, but it
like
was
the clown mask that Riley has on and the werewolf mask. They are spot on to the DLC.
Oh, that's cool.
But in the DLC, you were actually able to choose the mask.
Yeah, because I got the award for trying them all on.
Yeah. So
that's really cool.
But they did that extremely well. How they actually made it to where it was exactly how it was in the game. And they were both dancing on the actual counter space that's there, and it was lit up just like in the game too.
Hmm.
Yeah, I kind of God, my voice. I actually really want to know if what they had to do for Mortal Kombat, because Mortal Kombat isn't made by Naughty Dog.
Yeah.
So what arrangements were made to like, hey, can we feature this in the show, even though you're gonna have this,
Warner Brothers owns Mortal Kombat.
Oh,
And
yeah, that's what I
HBO.
said. There you go. See,
Yeah. I will say though, like the build up, like I obviously even not even knowing the game, just being a zombie fan and a movie watcher, like you knew what was gonna happen. Um, my God, the build up though, like I kept looking at my wife, like just have it happen already. Like I'm tired of waiting. Like it was painful to watch, man. 'Cause it's just like they're in this, just serene moment of like finding their first little like I don't know if you'd say love necessarily, but like infatuation with somebody else, and
Yeah, they
it's
were
about
like,
to be
"Oh,
ended up.
this might be the rest of my life. This is it. Like, this is what I want."
Yeah, like they were able to be kids for a minute. You know what I mean? Like they like truly, and it is interesting to see they were arguing either end of it because Ellie very much at first was like very anti Firefly, like, oh, how does it feel to be a T word? I don't want to say it because it'll probably get you no chance of you being monetized. How does it feel to be that? And she's just like, oh, how does it feel to be a sheep? Like, like they were both very much like, politically for that realm,
Yeah.
very against it. But then at the end of it, they both were just like, who cares about any of this? All that matters in this moment is like us and our future. And then like it's just like painful to just know that that's about to end. So I kept looking because when I get anxiety, my wife always knows because I start fidgeting with my hands a lot. My hands get cold, so like I just start like trying to warm my fingers back up and stuff. And she's like, "You're having anxiety, huh?" And I'm like, "Yes," because I know this is about to end, so like I just want it to happen. But yeah, it was the timing and the pacing of it, like making you wait for it essentially was like done very well because it was just like, oh my God, this is painful to watch, man. So that was pretty cool.
in the game, did Ellie find like a needle and thread to suture Joel in that DLC?
No,
I don't know why I
no,
can't remember
because
that
when
scene.
he's in the house is when Ellie's out shooting the rabbits with the bow and arrow and
No, no,
finds the
no.
deer.
Like within the DLC when they're at the mall.
She finds a first aid kit on a helicopter.
Yeah.
And when you get back to Joel is the end of the DLC.
Okay. For some reason, I can't remember that part. I honestly, and I'm gonna be totally honest, I played the game 3 or 4 times, beat every single time, and I played the DLC twice. It's one of those DLCs that it's when you know Riley, you see how they get infected, and then you're done. You don't really have to play it again.
Yeah, I mean,
DLCs are challenging too, man. Like for Resident Evil, there's some where you replay because like you don't necessarily have like the space to like save. So like on Resident Evil, like it's a long game. You have time to upgrade your guns and get yourself ready to go. And like in the space of the DLC, like you only have so much. So you're trying to do that in a short time frame. So yeah, I don't know. DLCs are a little stressful for me sometimes.
yeah. In the DLC is where she found the bow and arrow, and
Yes.
you have the bow and arrow when you're back in the today. So I kind of would have liked to have seen her finding the bow and arrow, but we already saw the rabbits at the Native American home of those two people. So I don't think we're going to get that scene again. But I would like to see her going out for the deer. Only it's going to be with a gun now instead of a bow.
Yeah, that's where it gets replaced. So actually, that's the next thing I wanted to cover next is we did get a sneak peek of episode 8, which is honestly the one episode I'm really looking forward to, especially in the game because that's a very, very interesting moment.
I'm anxious about it now.
We are met with a
Visual
new
didn't match
character.
what I was thinking.
Yeah, we're met with a new character that I want to say is significant in the game for the reason like for Joel and Ellie.
Yeah, you gotta be careful
There-
what you say here.
Yeah, there's a moment there. So that's the only reason why I'm looking forward to it. But if the one thing, Zach, is if you look in the preview, there is a guy who's like a redhead, and there's a guy with a beanie. You see him? He has kind of like a beard. He is the voice actor for Joel in the game.
Oh, how cool!
Yeah.
Troy Baker. So that's his
That's
role.
fun.
Yeah, that's his role in the show. The one thing I thought we were gonna get in this episode was Ashley Johnson, who plays Ellie in the game, I thought she was going to make an appearance in this episode
Is she in the
because
series?
she is, and I already know
Yeah, I
who
think
I know
she
who
might
she's
be.
playing already. But I thought this was going to be the episode that we find out, or everyone finds out who she
Are
is.
they gonna make it like a David's wife thing or something? Because that would be really weird. Okay.
Nope, no, it's something else.
But it's another John Lane, right? It's gonna be another new character not in the game.
Yes, yeah,
Has to be.
brand new character we didn't get in the game that we do get in the show.
Yeah.
But we do get introduced to David, which this is going to be a very interesting episode. But now I think this is going to be an entire episode. Actually, not even entire episode. Oh yeah, entire episode dedicated straight to Ellie. So we're going to have 2 episodes of just Ellie.
Oh, that reminds me. Okay, so we were talking about how this feels out of place.
Mhm.
It playing the game, when you get to the point where Ellie goes out to get the deer, it's the first time you play as Ellie in the game, and you're like,
Yes.
oh wait, I have to play as the girl too. Oh, okay. And then you like have to go through the mechanics again, like figure out how to shoot a bow, and it's like relearning a new tutorial for the game. And I think that is another reason why the episode kind of works, because it gives you that same moment of, oh, I'm not Joel anymore. Now
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
Ellie, and you really learn how to play as Ellie a lot in that moment before David. So
You get that character development like you did in the game.
exactly,
But
exactly.
it hits better because now it's a show, and now you actually get to sit there and enjoy and see the character development within herself.
Mhm,
Which
yeah.
is weird because like in the game it was a DLC, so you don't see that moment until months later.
Mhm.
We're getting in the show right away, which is really cool.
But I was gonna, when they introduced David in the little small preview for the next episode, uh, he just doesn't look like anything like David from the game, and it kind of pulled me out of it for a moment. And because I really connected with David playing the game, and I was like, this is like a genuinely awesome person, and like he has this really kind face, and they made him look scary already in the preview, and I'm like, that's not how I was introduced to David. In the game, it was very much, this is someone to trust. This is someone that can help take care of you.
Yeah.
And in the preview, it's almost like got the scary music even, where you're like, what's up with this David guy? So I don't know. I kind of wish they didn't. It seems like they sped along the story there already, and the episode hasn't come out yet.
I wish we would have gotten no David, but Troy Baker.
That would have been cool. Yeah. I would have rather been introduced to David as the episode came out versus the preview, because already it's not matching my expectation in my head. The visual doesn't match it.
This is the episode I've been looking forward to, and I'm really hoping they kill it. But because exactly what you said, I feel like we should have just gotten like a Troy Baker and other characters, just not David.
Yeah.
But
This should be the most important episode, even more
yes.
so than the last one, I think.
Yeah. I mean, this episode is gonna be shorter than, but 10 minutes shorter than the others. But I mean, we're already done with episode 7. We have 2 more. I'm really hoping episode 9 is an hour and a half, because I think with that finale, it deserves that. I'm gonna start this with you, Zach, because again, you've never played the game. So far, because the game was such a huge hit, and the show is doing very, very well. What are your opinions? One, with this episode, did you like it? Did you enjoy it? Did it hit like the past 6 episodes? And is the show actually like meeting up to your expectations to how well received the game was?
So I say as far as this episode goes, like out of a 10 for me, like interest level and everything, I'm gonna say about an 8. Just again, I don't have like that full, I guess, connection as like you guys do with the game with it. So just from like watching it, it was interesting. But I as John kind of broke that down, I am gonna have to kind of agree with him. I do feel like this could have maybe been a half an episode, and then they focused back on Joel and Ellie or something. So I just feel like it could have been done a little differently. I do feel they were trying to recapture the magic in the bottle of episode 3 in this one, and like as you guys said, I don't feel that they hit it as well in this one. It was a very beautifully written episode though. Like I will say, like as all of us who have had that first love and then lost it, like that we can all relate to that. Maybe not by being bitten by a zombie mushroom, but still, we can relate to that. But overall, I can't say I feel this episode hit on the same level as everything else. But I just kind of took it as filler. That's basically how I felt. I'm not gonna lie, because I know you guys really liked last week too. I kind of felt last week was filler as well. But I'm excited because usually when filler happens, it's because it's leading to something extravagant. So I am okay with it. I'm not bored with the series at all. I think it's going at a normal show's pace at this point. But I am very excited to see where it goes from here. So as far as the hype, as far as like from what people like how highly the game players hold it, I hear nothing but good things from people who like the games and with the show. So I'll have to just kind of take your guys' word from it. The only other thing I can relate it to, and this just dawned on me while we were talking about this, is Halo just released a series this last year. And I'm sitting here thinking about it, and I'm like, what the hell were they doing with that show? Because it's like a brand new story that has nothing really to do with any of the Halo timeline that I'm aware of. And so it makes me a little bit bitter towards that, because it's like it could have been done. Because this show obviously I think this show was very important and has set the format on how you make a video game live action in a series. So that's what I'm excited for. So I will say, from that impact of this show, I think this is a very important show, and I'm thankful for it because I'm excited to see. Obviously, it's not perfect because, but this is a hell of a lot better than what we've gotten up to this point. So
I will say, even though it felt like filler, for instance, like episode 3 kind of felt like filler because of the story, the route they went with the story. You can see it's different for the game. I will tell you now, because even though it felt like filler, if they do create an episode or season 2, right, and they do go the same route where it's close to the game but they make their changes, that filler will actually make sense at the very, very end.
Yeah, it's kind of how I'm seeing it. Yeah.
Most filler is just a filler that makes no sense, like Bad Batch.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with the actual story, but it's good filler. I promise you that.
Yeah, definitely.
John,
what was the question?
Is the show actually meeting your expectations? We know how you feel about this episode, and like, honestly, I agree with you. It took me away a few times too, but I just I think I just enjoyed the game, so I kind of want to see the story live action, which is why I enjoyed it.
Yeah, so far where we are, I mean, we're 7 in, and I'm enjoying it, but I'm also not enjoying it as much as I did the video game. I'm very much enjoying seeing the visuals and seeing it in live action, and maybe getting a couple of those like gaps kind of filled in with story, which is very nice. And we have 2 more episodes left, which is like, this is where it kind of worries me. I don't know where it's going to end. And I'm like, do we have enough time to finish off part 1? Are we going to finish in a proper spot? And that's the thing that's getting me. I mean, I'm really enjoying it, but I don't know if I'd sit down and watch the show again, because it's not as exciting to me as the game was. Like, I think I'm going to play the game again. Like, the game held me straight through. I mean, I was nonstop almost on part 1, just day after day after day, unless I had to go to work or something else came up. Like, last night, I almost just kind of passed on it. I was like, I'll just watch it in the morning. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just not holding my interest enough that I am very excited for Sunday.
I think I would revisit a couple episodes, but I wouldn't revisit the entire show.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like they could have done. I enjoy the story. I do feel like they could have made it more action filled, because there's a lot of storyline just in the game that could have went. They could have had more interactions with clickers. They could have more action interactive with the people that they run in on streets and different crews, and like, there's so much that could have been done to have kept the action up. Not that everything needs to be action, but it's almost in a sense where it's like, it's almost kind of boring me. Like, and that's what this episode did. It bored me. Like, it didn't do anything for me. you know. And then it was the same thing with like episode 3. Like I enjoyed it, but I enjoyed it for a different reason. Like I didn't enjoy it as part of the show, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean?
And it was funny. It was I think in the game, it was more than one infected, right? That was chasing after the girls,
A horde, yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And no, I think the only reason, like, as much as I really wanted it in the show, I don't think it was going to work because even just episode 1, we saw how fast the infected are,
Mhm.
and to chase 2 teenage girls, it wouldn't have made it sense for a horde to be chasing 2 girls and they almost get away
Right.
because we see how fast they are. But
Mhm.
that there is a part of me I wanted at least 4 to chase after them to where they're running through the mall. That would have been cool. But I think it would not have made sense just because just how fast they made these infected.
If anything, that was the best change that they made, was taking it from the other mall scene with the American Girl doll store.
Mhm.
Like that was a really smart choice, because if you're gonna show just one, that was the perfect way to do it.
Elvis, how do you feel
Uh,
about the episode? I rated it 10 just because of the experience of the show and how well everyone played their character.
mhm.
But I mean, what would you rate the episode? Did you like the show? And is the show so far meeting your expectations? Now knowing we only have 2 more episodes left.
Yeah. I have to admit that I agree a lot with John and Zach on a couple points they made. About this feeling like filler, and I mean, realistically, it's just the lack of action. So it's the speed of the show. The speed of the last 2 episodes isn't high paced and exciting. So even though this is filler that is continuing to pull the plot along, it feels like filler because it's not high octane, you know? So I have to admit that I don't want to use the word bored, because I actually really got emotional in a couple of moments, and the songs that they chose and the moments I really did enjoy some of those parts, but I can't say this is a god tier. Like, I know I like other episodes better than this one, so I have to give it an 8, only because we lost Chris. Only because I've rated the worst episode so far a 9, so I have to make this an 8, because out of all the episodes so far, it's not my favorite yet.
Mhm.
So I appreciate the episode. I appreciate what they're doing, what they're establishing. I really, really like it, but I can't give it the same score as some others.
Would you say it's lower because of exactly what you said? Or how would you just rate character development though? Because and the thing is, I do agree with you guys with the entire episode. It does take you away a little bit. It does take you away from the action that we could have gotten from it. But character development, I think they nailed that right on the head.
Yeah, no, I think they did good, for sure. It just wasn't like I connected more on the Bill episode, even though it was. Well, I mean, they're men. I'm a man, and Ellie's supposed to be a 14-year-old girl. It's kind of hard for me to get in the mindset of a 14-year-old, girl coming into her sexuality.
But at the same time, I think we all can relate to
Yeah,
that because we've all gone through it. You know, I think it's
the
just
crush in school and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, no, Chris is right. They did a good job with the character development, for sure.
Well, we got 2 more episodes. I think we have a lot that's supposed to happen this next episode. Again,
Do
I'm
you
gonna
think
keep
they
repeating
show
it.
Ellie shoot Riley like in the first few seconds of the next episode, or do you think we just are led to imagine it?
I'm actually wondering if we're not even going to see it.
I have a theory.
I don't
not
think they
gonna.
will.
I have I'm just not gonna say what it is, just because it would be a spoiler.
I
think I'm
almost
gonna
feel
wait.
like if they were to do it, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's like I almost feel like if they were to show it, it should be almost like a hazy dream sequence that kind of wakes her up in the middle of the night and told you what just happened.
I know what Chris is thinking, I think. So think to the line, let's just be poetic and lose our minds together. We'll hear that line again. I think they'll show it at that point. And it's
Yeah,
going to be
either
very not in the place you
either
expect.
yeah,
I
either
think
they're
that's
gonna
where they
show
go.
it or they're gonna insinuate it, right?
Hmm.
And I think it's, you know, when movies, whenever someone talks with it's like middle conversation or speaking to someone, they show a flashback, but it's not the audio of the flashback. The person is still speaking at that current moment. I
Hmm.
think that's when we'll get a flashback insinuating that
Yeah.
she does shoot her, and then it continues on with the conversation. And I think that's going to happen at the very, very end of 9. And I think that's actually a good way of doing it.
Yeah.
I think it's going to hit and make that moment more
Yeah,
impactful,
I think you're
and it's
calling
going
it
to
now. I think that's
and yeah, it's going to reflect this episode even more. We're going to be like, dude, this girl really lost everyone, and now you know she's in pain, and this is why she has so much love for Joel and
Oh,
why
we
she
totally
depends on
skipped
him
over
so
that.
much. What?
So Riley says all roads lead to the same thing. Like
Yeah.
everyone's gonna die.
Yeah.
You know, they say it with the dead person when they find the drugs and the alcohol. And that was a big theme in the comic book. All roads lead, because you know she's only suffered loss and she's kind of jaded. Um, and I think you're absolutely right that that's going to. There's going to be something that happens at the end of the series, Zach, that I can't say. But it's definitely going to have the. Is she okay with this? Is she agreeing with it, or is she just jaded and they're like, there's gonna, it's gonna make more sense later. I'll have to leave it at that.
Mm.
Well, I mean, I guess that covers this entire episode. We have 2 more, and honestly, Zach, if this next episode, is as good as I hope it is, I'm gonna text you right away. I'm gonna see if you start at when it comes out, or if you wait a few hours. But
You're gonna
I'll
have cold fingers.
Just
yeah,
send me a thumbs up.
like you thought you had anxiety now. Oh yeah, no, no. You might want to smoke.
I will.
Like during right before, and then like a little bit during. That way your anxiety level drops a little bit, because excuse me, this is a really
This
messed
next
up
one's gonna
episode.
be
So it's
good.
good. So it's
This
gonna be
next one's
good.
gonna be
It's just really messed up.
good.
But guys,
I'm
again,
excited.
you know, thank you again as usual for dedicating an hour of your guys' time. Honestly, that means a lot. This is personally a show I've been looking forward to except for the game so much. And then I spent moments and minutes, and I mean, if you add up all the time, it's probably a couple hours between John and Elvis as they're playing through the game, because I want to know what they thought about the game. And it was exciting when I knew what moment of the game that they were in. And I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
you didn't spoil a thing.
I was
The
like,
way you
just,
asked
I was like, just wait. I know, you know, I know this is gonna happen. It's gonna happen, and I know this. You're kind of waiting for this to happen, but just wait on it. That's how I feel about John right now playing the second game. I know he's super busy right now, and I'm just waiting for the moment
Yeah,
for
I'm
him to play
playing it in
more.
like tiny batches.
I know you were spoiled about, you know, someone spoiled it for you, but there's more to the game. I promise you. I know that there's more character development between Ellie and other characters, but like now I'm getting the same experience of hearing that, but now through you, Zach, because it's cool, because again, this is a game I've played 4 or 5 times already. Now I get to experience the show, even though I know what's going to happen. I still get the anxiety because it's like, oh, okay, this part's gonna happen soon, but then they flip it on me. But now I'm getting to live that experience with you. So like again, I appreciate you guys taking this time to talk about it, to enjoy it, to love the show, hate the show, or just think it's an okay show. I love the show. I think it's great, but I do agree with John. There are those moments it takes you away from the experience of the show and the game. So, do you guys have any final words?
Yeah, one actually. John, you were talking about how you think you enjoyed playing the game more than watching the show, or I don't know if you were definitive with that, but that they're 2 different experiences, right?
Oh, yeah, very, very.
And the show has only made me more excited to go back and play the game. If that makes any sense, like I want to go replay it again.
Yeah.
The show, I think, really is a highlight to the story of the game, and that's what the game about is the story. But the game is just so much more. And so, for anyone watching this, you're like, oh, I don't need to play the game now that I've seen the show. You're wrong. Like, go play that game.
Yeah, because the game truly, I mean, you're watching it as an outsider on the show, but as playing the game, it really puts you into it.
Yeah.
You know, like you are the characters at that point, you know.
Actually, it makes me want to play the second one more than the first. I might do that today. So, once again, you guys, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys very, very
got it.
much. I cannot wait to see you guys next weekend. Zach, especially you. Because I'm actually really, hopefully, I'm more awake next Monday. I probably won't be, 'cause I'll be working late again, which is totally fine. But to me, it's worth it because I can't wait to see your reaction, but also the reaction of John and Elvis, and hopefully Sam's can make it next week, just because we know what's supposed to happen in this episode. Is there going to be any differences from the game and the show? How different is it going to be, or how similar is it going to be from the show? So, once again, you guys, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. I can't say that enough. I'm gonna say it to you guys every single week because I am grateful for you guys. So, yeah, I'll see you guys next week, and
I did.
bye.
Bye.
Later.